I am mom to Gregory and William, and outside of being a mom, I really enjoy cooking and anything outdoors. My name is Stacy, and I'm a miraculous mama.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and it is World Breastfeeding Week. I'm so excited to have the guest share with you. I know last week I said that we were going to have a midwife on this week, but I forgot that it was World Breastfeeding Week, and I was able to interview, you guys know her as Milky Mama on Instagram and on the web, and it's Krystal Duhaney, and she is just awesome. She has such an amazing story that she's going to share with us and also answer tons and tons of breastfeeding questions. And before I bring her on, I wanted to dive into some of the breastfeeding statistics that are out there because that's kind of the point of World Breastfeeding Week, is seeing the trends that are happening and seeing where there needs to be support or education. And so I got this information off of the CDC website. So about 83 to 84% of babies are breastfed at some point. Babies that are breastfed exclusively for 3 months drops down to about 47%. Exclusively through 6 months is at 25%. And people who are still breastfeeding at a year, but like also feeding whole foods and stuff, is around 36%. So you can see that the numbers kind of go all over. It starts out with people trying to do it, and then there is a drop off that happens. And you can look at, I'll put a link in the notes. There's a map of the United States that talks about breastfeeding and some other interesting statistics. But 60% of mothers do not breastfeed for as long as they intend to. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. And a big part of it is lack of support with issues of lactation or latching and not knowing where to turn or who to talk to about the problems that you may be experiencing. There's always concern about nutrition and weight. Mothers concerned about taking medications while breastfeeding, unsupportive work policies, and lack of parental leave. Cultural norms and or lack of family support, unsupportive hospital practices and policies. So those are some of the top reasons why mothers do not breastfeed as long as they intend to. But I'm so excited to have this conversation with Krystal because we talk about a lot of that stuff. If you're concerned about your baby's weight or getting enough food, and when you're having issues with latching or milk production, there seems to be a lot of lack of education surrounding that. It's very normal. I mean, your milk doesn't come in for a few days. After you have the baby, you get that colostrum right up front, which is awesome. And then all of your milk doesn't usually come in for a few days. And our bodies are used to that, but also the baby's body's used to that. So that's why it's really normal for babies to lose a little weight right away and then start gaining it back. So a lot of people think maybe their milk just didn't come in, but it does take time, and there's a lot of factors that go into it, including diet and things like that. But I mean, there obviously are times too where it didn't really work out, or it didn't really come in maybe how you expected it to. And I wanted to touch on something else before Krystal comes on, because one of them is lack of work support, unsupportive work policies, and parental leave. And there is a lot of places that may not provide a place for you to do that. And if that is your work, you actually can talk to your HR department about that. I also knew somebody who they were able to pump, but they would only get, I think it was like a 10, 15-minute break to go pump every few hours, but they had to walk so far away. And by the time they got there, they could only pump for a couple of minutes, and then they'd have to clean their pump and come back. And it just was so hard to be able to do it because it just took so much work. And I just feel for those mamas out there whose jobs aren't supportive. So, and also a lot of women are forced to pump in bathrooms, in public bathrooms. And there is a lot of statistics around that. Like this is kind of gross, but once somebody flushes the toilet, those poop particles are floating around for a while. So it is not the best place or the most sanitary place to be pumping. And it's breastfeeding should be, and I want to make that clear too, pumping is also breastfeeding. You're pumping your breast milk. So you're giving your child milk from your breast. Needs to be normalized. And if you are at a place where it's not, again, I just encourage you to talk to the HR department or look at other ways that you can change the culture where you work and the thoughts and feelings when it comes to breastfeeding. Breastfeeding in public is legal and it is protected by federal law. So there you go. You can tell your job that. But I'm really excited for all of the things that she is going to talk to us about. And we also touch on too that breastfeeding, like if it's something that you choose to do, one of the biggest things to take into consideration is also mom's mental health. If it comes to a point where there can come a point where your sanity is more important than breastfeeding. And so I don't want anybody to listen to this and think that, oh, well, I didn't choose to breastfeed or, feel bad about whatever. It's not, we're just educating ourselves on breastfeeding, asking a lot of questions for those who want to or choosing to. And if you didn't, that's perfectly fine too. We believe in healthy babies and healthy moms. And that is what is super important. All right, we are going to take a quick break because I believe that reading labels is key. I do it with everything from the food I buy to the beauty products that I use, even my deodorant from Native. And I also believe in having clean options and supporting companies who innovate products that break the norm and help clean up my daily routine. And that is why I love Native. I've been using them for over a year now. And I know that, okay, so we're talking about breastfeeding in this episode, and I've had so many women reach out to me or talk to me about how when you start breastfeeding, your BO changes. There is a breastfeeding BO that happens. And I am so excited that I have Native on my side as I'm going to be entering that journey really soon because they don't just block odor better. Their products are made better. They have ingredients that you have heard of like coconut oil, shea butter, and tapioca starch. It's also vegan and never tested on animals. And one thing I love is there's no aluminum. Aluminum forms a plug in your sweat glands to keep you from sweating. And that is no bueno. And that's why Native never uses ingredients like aluminum, parabens, sulfates, or talc. Switching to an aluminum-free deodorant has been such an amazing decision for me because it didn't mean that I had to sacrifice on odor protection, but it meant that I was eliminating that toxic ingredient from my life. And also your skin's your largest organ. It's absorbing everything on it. And that also gets to your baby in utero. Your baby's exposed to it when you're breastfeeding. If you think about it, their face is like right by your armpit. So to me, it's so important to have clean ingredients, and that is why I love Native. I also use their toothbrush, their toothpaste, so make sure that you check out their toothpaste line as well. They have over 10 scents, including rotating seasonals. They have something for everyone. One of my favorites is the citrus and herbal. I've been using that for a long time. I love anything citrusy, but I also do like coconut vanilla because it's just kind of a timeless classic. I honestly am obsessed with Native. I have a couple of the regular size sticks, and then I always have the small ones to take on trips with me. I have one in my doula bag for when I get called to births, and I just packed my hospital bag, and I have one in there as well. It is risk-free to try. Every product comes with free shipping within the U.S., plus free 30-day returns and exchanges. So see why so many people love Native. Check out their over 14,000 5-star reviews. So do what I did and make the switch to Native today by going to nativedeo.com/miraculous or use promo code miraculous at the checkout and get 20% off your first order. That's nativedeo.com/miraculous or use promo code miraculous at checkout for 20% off your first order. Now back to the episode. So I'm going to go ahead and get Krystal on. All right, everyone, I have Krystal Duhaney here. She's a registered nurse, international board certified lactation consultant, and a breastfeeding mom. She's been on a journey with it, which made her passionate, and how we know her is through Milky Mama. So we're so glad that you are here with us. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'd love for you to tell us how you got into all of this.
So, I struggled to breastfeed my first child, my son, and I realized that there were very few resources. There wasn't really a place that I could go for help. I asked my, pediatrician, and he said, well, you can always give formula, which is fantastic. Of course, lots of moms feed formula. I was formula fed, but that's not what I wanted for my journey. So I was a little discouraged, but determined to make it work. So I began researching for myself to help have a more successful journey. And we struggled our way to through breastfeeding, but we made it to breastfeeding for over 2 years. And then when I became pregnant with my daughter, I was determined to have a much better experience. So I started from the get-go, from pregnancy on, educating myself, trying to find ways to support my milk production, especially while returning to work as a registered nurse on a busy medical floor. It was difficult to find time to pump and to maintain my supply. So I wanted to find a way to do so. So I developed a delicious cookie recipe that helped to increase my supply. I shared it with my friends and they loved it. And then I started selling it to local mothers. And from there, we just continued to grow very rapidly. And now we've shipped out over 1 million orders across the world to moms everywhere.
Wow, that's so amazing. I wrote that down. I was like, how did you come up with this amazing cookie recipe? Because that's definitely something I'm going to have to look into here very soon. But it said that you had like a love for baking as well.
I did. Even as a kid, I've always loved baking. I've always just loved being in the kitchen. So it kind of came natural. I just, figured I could bake something. I love to bake. I love cookies. So it kind of, was an easy solution for me. We've expanded our product offerings now to, we offer brownies. We offer herbal supplements for those that don't want to eat cookies and brownies all day. We offer beverage mixes, lemonades, tons of stuff. But what's most important is our network of breastfeeding support. That is really the backbone of our company. We provide lactation consultations, both virtual and in person when we're not in the middle of a pandemic. We also provide flange consultations. A lot of pumping moms have no idea what flange size to use, and that can really impact your milk production. We have an amazing support group. We're very active on social media with our social media, using our social media feeds to educate and empower about breastfeeding as well. So it's really more than a treat company. It's really this whole little sisterhood, I like to call it, of breastfeeding and pumping mamas just supporting each other.
Yeah, for sure. I know I was checking out all of your guys' info, and although you do have amazing products, it is the support. It is the being able to find a consultant or even hop on the phone with somebody who can help you through your journey and know that, I mean, we're going to dive into some of the myths that breastfeeding isn't always easy for everyone and it doesn't always come naturally. And I love that you guys talk about that. So I'd love to dive into some of those myths. And I know one of them is that your baby should just latch on and it should be easy and it should be natural.
Yeah. That's a very common myth. And I experienced the same thing. You know, you look at, maybe you might see a mom, which is a whole other issue, that it's very rare that you'll see a mom breastfeeding in a magazine, because breastfeeding, unfortunately, is still not completely normalized, but we're getting there, right? So let's say you see an advertisement of a mom breastfeeding. 9 times out of 10, she's smiling and like, this is the greatest thing ever, and this is fantastic, and it's so easy. And so when I saw those as a pregnant mom, I was like, oh, like, you just latch the baby eats, we're good to go. But my experience wasn't like that. My first latch was painful. My baby didn't have a deep latch, and no one told me otherwise. Like, everyone said, oh, it's okay. It gets better. Your nipples will bleed, but they'll get better. And no one told me that, you know, that's not okay. That my nipples shouldn't be falling off when I'm trying to latch. And I think that it's really important to have and to set realistic expectations for parents so that they know, hey, it's normal to have some tenderness and soreness. It's normal to be a little sore. And latching, although it's natural, breastfeeding is considered natural, it's still a skill that you and your baby need to learn. So don't expect things to just happen perfectly. You know, seek help. There's nothing wrong with seeking help. There's nothing wrong with checking in with the lactation consultant before leaving the hospital. I think that's really important. Make sure you get checked before leaving the hospital so that you can make things going okay before you get home.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I feel like, though, I've heard the opposite. I've heard it shouldn't be painful at all. It should be easy. And basically, if there is any pain, then your baby's not latched right, or there's a problem. But I know that there's still going to probably be some soreness either way.
Yeah. You know, and I always use this analogy, and I apologize because I'm like the queen of terrible analogies, but, you know, I just say things that are a bit inappropriate, but this is the only way that my brain thinks about it. Like, before you had a baby, I can guarantee that there wasn't another human sucking on your breast every 2 hours. If that was your life before, I'm jealous, but I'm pretty... That wasn't the case. So it's very normal with the increased stimulation that you're going to have some tenderness and soreness. And it's very also really important to distinguish between soreness and tenderness and pain, that toe curling, you know, teeth grinding pain that a lot of us associate with latching. That's very different. So soreness and tenderness that goes away after the latch is established and baby's drinking is normal. Pain that lasts the duration of the nursing session is not normal.
Yeah, I know. All right, we're going to take a quick break because parents, you may have felt like you spent a lot of time with your kids this summer. Summer vacation got started a little bit early, but there is so much fun and learning that you can still do at home. There's this amazing company called Kiwi Co. that can deliver a science fair art class project right to your door. I was even surprised at how much I love this as an adult. So I decided to get this for my nieces and nephews, and actually on both sides. So Vito's nephews and niece do it, and we got it for my sister on my side, her kids. And the one project that I helped them with was the robot. It's a walking robot, and it was so much fun to put together. And it was bonding, and it was cool seeing the kids think to put this together and then to see it work at the end of it, to watch this robot that we put together actually start walking and come to life was so cool. My nephew is obsessed with magic right now, and he's into card shuffling and things like that. So I really want to check out the Eureka Crate card shuffling machine. You put together this machine that's supposed to shuffle your cards for you, but they have so many amazing projects, and for all different ages. Their first bundle starts from 0 to 2 years old. So it's not just for your older kids, but there's something for everyone. And like I said, I enjoyed it too. And your child can get super cool hands-on science and art projects delivered to their door every month. What kid doesn't love to get mail? You'll be surprised at how high quality the materials are too. These are real engineering, science, and art projects for children. Do your part to encourage your children to be innovators and creative thinkers. They will not believe what they can build and accomplish with KiwiCo. And when they're finished, watch their confidence be as big as their smile is. As a parent, it can be hard to find creative and new things to keep your children busy and challenged, especially during some of these long days. And KiwiCo does the legwork for you so you can spend quality time tackling projects at home together. KiwiCo is redefining play with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. There's something for every kid. Or if you're a kid at heart like me, at KiwiCo. Get 30% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line at kiwico.com/mamas. That's KIWICO.com/mamas. Now back to the episode. Breastfeeding is a part of our plan. It's a part of what we plan to do for our kids. But I am definitely nervous because I've heard so many people say, my milk never came in, or, you hear all the different reasons why women end up not breastfeeding. And I know that one of the other myths is that we don't give enough milk to our babies through our breasts.
Yeah, that's a big one too. There's lots of myths. A lot of it that stems from the fact that you can't see what your baby's drinking at the breast because we're so kind of conditioned to see that there's, 3 ounces in this bottle and that's how much my baby's drinking. When at the breast, you can't see, did you drink an ounce? Did you drink 3 ounces? So it makes us a little uneasy because we don't know exactly how much they're getting. So it's really also really, really important for you to know the signs of normal intake and the signs of when we have a problem. So when you're breastfeeding, we really look at, especially that first week, we really look at diaper output and baby's weight gain overall. So on day 1, when they're 1 day old, they should have 1 wet diaper, day 2, 2 wet diapers, and so on until about day 7. Then they should consistently have 6 to 8 wet diapers per day after that first week. Also, at about day 4 or day 5, depending on your labor and what type of labor you had, and if you were able to do skin to skin right away, those types of things. Baby's poop, that meconium that was previously like a dark black or green, should be transitioning to a yellowish seedy poop by about day 4 or 5. If that's happening within the first week, then that's a great indication that baby got enough milk during that first week. They should also have steady weight gain as well. But there are some chronic issues that parents have that can affect their milk supply. I mean, it's true that there are some women that just cannot produce milk, and it's really important to acknowledge that. Although the percentage of the women that can't versus the women that can is greater, obviously, there are more women that can produce milk is greater, but there are some reasons. And I just think it's really important that if you're having issues early on, if you're concerned early on, to seek help and not wait until, things are really, really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned something in there that I'd love to chat about too, is skin to skin. Does skin to skin affect that breastfeeding relationship?
Yeah, it does. So studies have shown that when we don't do skin to skin, or if it's delayed, it can affect your milk from coming in. And that's because, if you think about when you do skin to skin, when you're skin to skin with another human that you love, it creates oxytocin and you get all warm and fuzzy. And that oxytocin is what helps stimulate your letdown reflexes, which is what helps make your milk come down per se. So if a baby, is separated from mom, or they're separated due to an emergency, or if baby has to go to NICU or whatever, it's still really important to do skin to skin as soon as you are physically able, because those first few hours are so important to help establishing and kind of kickstarting your milk production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice to see, though, that a lot more hospitals are recognizing that instead of just being like, here's your baby. Okay, we're going to go weigh and measure and do all this. It's like that stuff can wait a little bit, and that they're allowing moms to have that immediate contact. And one thing that I always tell people too, is that even in a cesarean or something like that, that you still have options. Your partner can do immediate skin to skin too for the baby. And I know that there's some places that are potentially allowing the mama to do a little bit right there before they go to the recovery room. So it's always, I mean, at least you can ask, you know?
And mamas that have had a C-section, that's also a misconception that if you have a C-section, you'll have difficulty making milk. And in a lot of cases, that's not true. As long as you are able to latch your baby on as soon as possible within those first few hours, and do skin to skin as soon as possible, then in most cases, everything will be fine.
Yeah, for sure. So another thing that a lot of people think is that when you're breastfeeding, you can't get pregnant, right? So it's this form of birth control. And although it may provide that for some people, it may not be true for a lot as well.
Yes. So full disclaimer here, if you get pregnant while breastfeeding after listening to what I'm about to say, do not send me any like child support checks or anything. I'm not responsible for. Okay? So while you're breastfeeding, there is a form of birth control called the lactational amenorrhea method, which has been proven to be up to 97 to 99.7% effective at delaying ovulation and preventing pregnancy.
Sorry, you said 27 to what percent?
97 to 99.7% effective at delaying fertility and preventing pregnancy. The caveat to that, though, is that there are certain very strict and critical criteria that need to be met in order for this to be effective. So that's where it gets tricky because a lot of us cannot meet all of this criteria. The first criteria is that your baby has to be nursing on demand exclusively. So there's no pumping, there's no bottles, there's no pacifiers. It's just around the clock breastfeeding on demand. And a lot of us at one point or another have to give our babies a bottle or choose to give our baby a pacifier. If any of that happens, all bets are off. Another thing is that your baby has to be less than 6 months old. Also, that your period has not returned. And also that you are emptying your breast, again, routinely. So if all of that happens, then the method is generally effective. The common misconception is, well, don't we ovulate before we have our period? So then people say, well, it's not that accurate because you ovulate before getting your period. And studies have also shown that while you're breastfeeding, if you're breastfeeding around the clock, your first period really isn't a fertile period per se. It's just a warning period. Your fertility does take a couple of cycles to restore to its basically full capacity. So the chances of you getting pregnant before your first period are very rare. Can it happen? Absolutely. But it's still very rare. So it's really important to know that if you can't commit to breastfeeding around the clock with no bottles or pacifiers, and your period, has returned or hasn't returned, then it's probably not the best method for you to use to prevent pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. Our bodies are so smart. That's so interesting that it kind of sends like a warning period. It's like, hey, just so you know.
Exactly.
Oh,
they
so
are.
funny.
And so much more about our bodies. I just think that they're so amazing that your body even knows that, hey, she's breastfeeding, so let's hold off on popping another kid out anytime soon, I think that that's also equally amazing.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break to talk about how you can start your day feeling successful. So what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? I know for me, I always make my bed because I feel like if my life is chaotic, which it kind of is right now, or if I just have a lot to do, at least I made my bed. It makes my room look clean, even if it's not. And it just makes me have that sense of, okay, I did something today. I can have a successful day. But what feels even better than making your bed every morning? How about the sheets that go in it? Go with Brooklinen because they are so amazing and they are home of the internet's favorite sheets. And I am a sucker for comfort. Anything that is super comfortable and cozy, I am all about. And when it comes to my bedroom, I really believe that your room needs to be your sanctuary, a place that you go, that you can relax and be able to unwind and just have that feeling of comfort. And that is why we chose to go with Brooklinen for the sheets in our bedroom, because they feel like a little retreat away every single time I crawl into them. And Brooklinen was the first direct-to-consumer bedding company. They work directly with the manufacturers and directly with customers, so there's no middlemen, just great product and an amazing service, and all luxury products without all of the luxury markup. They're so cost efficient as well. They have a variety of sheets, colors, patterns, and materials, all for your lounging needs. We went with the Luxe Sateen. It's buttery, smooth cotton sheets, and it's literally a slice of heaven every time I crawl into bed. And they have bundle sheets and bedding big. They're these bundles that they have. You save bigger. It includes a duvet, a core sheet set, and extra pillowcases. They have bedding extras like blankets and fabric care. Online, they have a friendly Brooklinen rep ready to chat about any and all questions. And you guys, they have over 50,000 5-star reviews and counting. Brooklinen sheets are the perfect place to start making your mornings great. Brooklinen is so confident in their product that all their bedding comes with a lifetime warranty. But trust me, you guys, once you crawl into these sheets, you're not going to want to get out. And right now, you can get 10% off your first order and free shipping when you use the code MAMAS, only at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Brooklinen, everything you need to live your most comfortable life. Let's talk real quick about how amazing our bodies are and how your milk supply can change based on what your body needs, even on not only how much they need to eat, but even I've heard like based on their health or whatever, like your milk adapts to the needs of them, which is also why people are able to like tandem feed, because it you'll have to explain it, but basically your boob knows, hey, this is this child and this is what they need.
Yeah, our bodies are, again, so amazed at the things I find out every day. And it's believed that your nipple has pores. Well, we know your nipples have pores, but it's believed that when your baby is latched on, that signals are transmitted from baby saliva, like a vacuum kind of sucked into your body. And then your body uses those messages that it received from baby saliva to kind of cater your milk to its needs. So if your baby, has a fever, if it senses, the temperature is rising, it'll maybe provide more water content for more hydration to help bring that fever down. Or if your baby's fighting a virus, it might help, make more antibodies to help baby get better faster. Or if you're sick, it might put antibodies to your illness in your breast milk to help prevent baby from getting sick. And going back to the tandem nursing thing, yes, your body knows, hey, this is a newborn and this is a toddler, so I need to make different types of milk. We've seen moms that have pumped one breast and pumped the other breast after nursing one toddler and one infant, and the infant milk was more yellowish like colostrum, and the toddler milk was white like mature milk. And it's just mind-blowing that how smart our bodies are and how much we don't give them enough credit. Like, we don't think about those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I do know some people who are tandem nursing, and I know that another myth, and you had mentioned that you breastfed for 2 years, is kind of the age thing. It's like, okay, at this age we need to stop, or at a certain age it becomes weird, or something like that. So I'd love to touch on how they're like, is there an age appropriate to stop breastfeeding, or like, why is there some weird societal taboos around certain ages?
So look, your boobs, your business, right? I think if we all followed that rule, then there wouldn't be an issue. It's none of my business what you choose to do with your body and your child. I think that there is a societal taboo because we've associated breasts with sexual organs, when really the only reason they exist is to feed babies or to feed, infants or feed children. So when we look at worldwide statistics, the average weaning age worldwide is about 2.5 to about 7 years old. So that's a huge difference. And it really just depends on, culture and society and your own personal preference. Breast milk doesn't stop being beneficial after a year. That's like saying, hey, don't eat broccoli after you're 6 months old, because after that, the nutrients are gone. Mm-hmm. That's not how breast milk, even for some adult applications. They're researching breast milk for treatments of certain conditions. Like one of the moms in our private Facebook group tested positive for COVID-19, and they're researching her breast milk because her breast milk had antibodies to it after she had recovered, to see if there's a possible treatment in that. And so that is just mind-blowing that it can use that to help cure or treat COVID-19 or other illnesses in adults. Then there has to be something to it. I think that it's just a societal taboo, like you mentioned. Like, we would rather buy breast milk from another animal at the grocery store.
Right.
A bottle of breast milk at the grocery store, you would like say, oh my goodness. But, it just kind of baffles my mind. So I think that however long you choose to breastfeed, whether you choose to breastfeed for 1 minute or whether you choose to breastfeed for 5 years, I think that you're an amazing mom, and that it's completely your decision, and you should feel confident and comfortable and supported in that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess I've never really thought about how you go buy cow breast milk at the store and put in your cereal.
Yeah. We're the only mammal that drinks the breast milk of another animal, which I don't think people think about. Like, you're literally drinking another animal's breast milk. I don't understand, but such is life.
Right. I've also heard that kind of breast milk, as you were mentioning, is like a cure-all, right? It's like your kid has an ear infection, an eye infection, just squirt some breast milk in there. Have you heard anything like that about breast milk?
Yeah. I always say, like, breast milk, like, I put that crap on everything. Like, if baby has a rash, I'm squirting breast milk. Everyone, if I had breast milk in my freezer today, everyone would be getting breast milk in their cereal, especially with the current. Everyone, my husband, everyone would be getting breast milk because it's just so amazing. But it is really important to know that, I'm not a fan of putting it in dark places. So like your ear, because bacteria likes to grow in conditions where it's warm and dark, and then there's food. Your ear is warm and dark, and then you put some breast milk with sugar in there, and it just kind of is a breeding ground for bacteria. And also, if your eardrum is ruptured as well, that can possibly be kind of an issue. But of course, always check with your healthcare provider before treating things with breast milk. I know that we all do it. And I know that it's worked wonders for things like pink eye. It's cleared some of my baby's rashes. It's cleared some of my rashes if I've had any like irritations on my skin or anything. So it's really wonderful. It has great both topical properties and properties when we ingest it. And you can use it for so much. We always post on our page different recipes. We just posted, breast milk soaps and lotions because it just has so many wonderful properties that we just still don't know so much about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I love that they're studying it and researching it for different things now. Because, going back, our bodies are absolutely amazing. And it's like, there's a home remedy right there.
I feel like our bodies know what we need, and they're but we just don't listen. Like, I feel like, even on a everyday basis, like if you're thirsty, you'll feel thirsty. And a lot of times we're like, I'm okay. And we just go and then we get dehydrated, right? So I think if we just listened more to our bodies and what they're telling us, that they would provide most of our needs, or at least give us the signals to help treat whatever we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break from this episode to talk about what interferes with your happiness. Is there something that's preventing you from achieving your goals? Are you struggling with depression, anxiety, family issues, anger, relationships, sleeping, trauma, stress? Any of these things we can all be experiencing at different times, but you are not alone, and there is help out there. And that is why I love BetterHelp, because they will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can connect in a safe and private online environment that is so convenient for you. You can start communicating in under 24 hours, and it's not self-help, it is professional counseling. You can send a message to your counselor anytime, and you'll get a timely and thoughtful response. Plus, you can schedule weekly video and phone sessions as well, all without having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room, which I have been there. I remember going to therapy before, and it was always awkward in the waiting room because people know you're like waiting to see this counselor, even though there is no shame in getting help. But that's why I've also loved BetterHelp, because I'm able to talk with my counselor whenever I'd like, and I don't have to schedule an appointment or leave my home and sit in a weird office. I can just send him a message, and we are able to communicate either via text or we'll set up a video chat, and it is so easy. And anything that you share is confidential. Again, it's so convenient. They're very professional. It's affordable. You can check out their testimonies on their site. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. And I want you to start living a happier life today. And as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting BetterHelp.com/mamas. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mamas. Now back to the episode. Thinking of thirst, what if I just have to have a glass of wine and I'm breastfeeding? And I mean, you've heard so many different things like pump and dump, or if you have a little bit, it's okay. Or, I mean, I'm not really sure what is okay. What would you tell people?
So pumping and dumping makes me cringe because every drop counts. And I mean, if you're a breastfeeding mom, you know how hard it is to pump or to make milk. And it's like literally liquid gold. Like, we treasure it. Mm-hmm. So to dump your milk down the drain really is just so unnecessary. So that's thing number one. Never pump and dump. Even if you don't want to give your baby that breast milk, I still think that you can use it for other applications. Like I mentioned, topical breast milk baths, those types of things. In addition to alcohol, what some studies have shown is that the amount of alcohol that enters your breast milk is very minimal. So realistically, you would have to drink lots and lots and lots of alcohol in order for it to have any effect on baby. It usually has less alcohol than, let's say, a glass of orange juice after drinking. And that's really after heavily drinking. Of course, the safest thing to do is to not drink while breastfeeding. That's always the safest. But it's going to sound crazy, but the safest way to do it, if you're going to do it, is to drink while breastfeeding. People are going to look at you like you're crazy, obviously, because everyone has their own judgments and perceptions. But it does take a while for your body to absorb and process the alcohol. So if you're breastfeeding and drinking, your baby isn't getting any of the alcohol because it hasn't processed through your system. The rule of thumb, according to the CDC and such, aside from not drinking at all, is to wait about 2 to 4 hours between drinks. I say that it's your personal preference. If you would rather not give your baby the breast milk that you've pumped or, expressed while drinking, you can dilute it with maybe milk that you pumped prior to drinking, so that way the alcohol content maybe is cut down. Mm-hmm. But you don't need to pump and dump. And pumping and dumping really doesn't do anything, because let's say you were drinking and you pump and you dump, the alcohol is still in your breast milk. Doesn't leave until it leaves your bloodstream. Mm-hmm. So once you're able to, once you feel sober, basically, and you don't feel the effects of the alcohol, then that's a good sign that it's left your bloodstream and that it's also left your breast milk. But as long as you feel those effects, it's still in there. But keeping in mind that the amount of alcohol in your breast milk is very minimal. It's not the same amount that was in the alcoholic beverage that you drank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think about too, my mom told me that when she was a kid, that it was very normal for them to rub some rum on teething babies' gums and stuff like that. And they're getting way more rum on their gums.
Yeah, precisely. So, it is a personal preference and personal decision. I think whatever you decide, I think that you should just feel confident in your choice, and no one should shame you as long as it's not causing any harm. But like I said, of course, for disclaimer purposes, the best and safest choice is to not drink alcohol in general. But
right.
we're human, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. I would love to touch on a couple of reasons why the baby might not be latching well. And I've heard a lot about tongue and lip ties. And how would you know if your kid had one?
So tongue and lip ties, we've been hearing a lot about those lately. And I think it's just because we're researching more. Like in the past, we never researched breastfeeding. It just wasn't a thing that we researched very much. But now as it's becoming more popular, we're doing more research and finding out things about it, which I think is great. But still a lot of times we don't realize that your baby has a tongue or a lip tie until we've already stopped breastfeeding. And we're like, oh my gosh, I had all of these symptoms and no one ever told me. So usually a tongue and lip tie, you'll start first having some symptoms like baby can't latch, or when baby does latch, it's very painful, or baby can't get a full feeding, even though they look like they're latched well on the outside. Or when you unlatch your nipple, instead of being nice and round, looks like a tube of lipstick where it has that pinched tip. Cracked nipples, bleeding nipples. You might hear baby clicking while gulping, like a clicking sound. Lots of gas, slow weight gain. Those are all some possible symptoms of a tongue tie or lip tie. But in order to really diagnose it, it has to be assessed by someone trained in doing so. And unfortunately, although I love pediatricians, I think that they're amazing, most of them are not trained in assessing and diagnosing lip ties properly. The best people to go to usually are pediatric dentists, pediatric ear, nose, and throat specialists, or maybe even a speech pathologist, and of course your IBCLC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that before too, because I've heard that a couple stories where things were maybe misdiagnosed or something like that. But I also know that there's a couple different ways to treat it. There's the laser, or you can cut. Is there like a better way, or is it kind of based between your decision, I guess?
Yeah. So if your baby has a tongue or a lip tie, there are a few things that you can do. You can do absolutely nothing. And I'm a little more conservative. I like the wait and see approach. To me, my focus is breastfeeding. So if baby has a tongue or lip tie and breastfeeding is going okay, then I generally leave it up to the parents. If they're not having any breastfeeding issues, because that's my area of forte, and everything is going okay, I say, hey, this is what I see. And you can decide what to do at that point. Because there are some studies that maybe, or some claims that a tongue tie later in life can cause dental issues or speech issues. But we don't know if that really is true. That's like saying, hey, your tooth might get a cavity, so let's pull all your teeth. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like a wait and see kind of thing. But if your baby is having symptoms and you are having issues associated with that, then it's time to look at treatment options. So one of the treatment options is a laser revision. The laser revision is sometimes preferred because if done properly, there's less of a chance for reattachment because the tissue is cauterized and it's not like actively bleeding. As opposed to a scissor, if you think about like when you cut it, just like if you were to get a cut on your arm, the skin heals together. So there's more of a opportunity potentially for it to reattach, which would be kind of no fun. So most providers would recommend or would prefer doing a laser, but both treatment methods can be effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I'm really scared of getting, because I remember my sister got it and it was horrible, is mastitis. And I just remember it got so bad that she had this giant bruise on the side of her breast and she was in so much pain. And I'm like, but she's still breastfeeding through it. I'm like, this sounds horrible. So I'd love for you to touch on what exactly is mastitis and what can we do about it?
So mastitis is the inflammation of the breast tissue. So usually it's caused by some sort of infection. And usually that's caused by an unresolved clogged duct. And usually that's caused by infrequent or ineffective milk removal. So usually when you get mastitis, it's because baby wasn't latching properly and they left milk in your breast, which kind of coagulated or caused a clog, and then that clog caused inflammation, and that inflammation caused an infection. Or baby, or your flanges weren't the right size and milk was left in your breast, or maybe you laid on your breast and caused a clog, or you wore a tight sports bra or underwire bra and it put some pressure somewhere. So that's usually one of the causes of mastitis. It's just ineffective or infrequent milk removal, meaning the milk was stuck in your breast for either too long of a time, or it just got stuck there and clogged and caused a blockage. So to prevent that is just doing the opposite, frequent and effective milk removal. So making sure that baby's latch is great and that your breasts feel softer after a nursing or pumping session, and that you don't still feel full and you don't feel engorged all the time, those types of things, because those are indications that milk isn't being removed frequently or effectively enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oof. I don't know why. That just scares me because every single person I talk to just says how painful it is.
It is, and it can get pretty bad. You can be hospitalized for it. It is an infection, and it can get worse if not treated. So it's really just important to kind of nip it in the bud, make sure everything is great. You have a great foundation to start with, so that way you can lessen your chances of getting mastitis.
Mm-hmm. And if you do feel it kind of coming on, you can feel whatever that feels like coming on. What can you do to kind of help ease it from getting further?
So usually, like I said, mastitis usually starts as a clogged duct, and you might feel like a little firm area in your breast. Of course, if you feel any masses or anything, you always want to get those checked. But you might feel a tender area on your milk duct, feels like a little bean, like just a little area of clog in there, and it just might be painful. And then gradually, if left untreated, it gets, more painful, and then it might get red and warm to touch, and it might get larger, those types of things. You might notice some streaks as the milk kind of backs up in the area, which is causing the inflammation. And that's what you would know. And then once it transitions to actual mastitis, then you would start getting those flu-like symptoms where you'll be, you might have a fever, you might feel generally tired, you might get some chills. That's when it's mastitis. And in most cases, medical treatment is recommended. So you would probably need some form of antibiotics to treat it at that point. If you can catch it before it gets to that point, you can treat it with lots of things. So warmth can help. So if you have like a warm compress, you can put that over the affected area to help dislodge the clog and remove it so that the milk can be removed from that area. You can also use massage. So while you're pumping or nursing, you want to massage your breast. You can also use vibration. They make these fancy vibrations for your breast, vibrators for your breast, but realistically, you can use anything that you have at home that vibrates. Even like an electric toothbrush, if it vibrates, anything just to vibrate over that area. Additionally, you can do what we call dangle feeding or pumping, where you're on all fours and your breast is kind of hanging downward. So you're using gravity and suction to help dislodge the clog. And that's really, really important. If you're starting to notice inflammation, you can take an anti-inflammatory medication like a Tylenol or something to treat the symptoms of inflammation. And just really, really have to work with getting it out and dislodging the clog. If you're having trouble and it's not dislodging, you can also take sunflower lecithin, which kind of helps emulsify or dissolve the clog. And those are all things that you can try before. But if you're noticing that it's just not working and the clog is getting worse, seek help from a lactation consultant before it gets to mastitis so that we can make sure and try to avoid any need to go and get some antibiotics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talking about your cookies, so those can help increase milk supply. Mm-hmm. Is there ever a time that you need to decrease your milk supply?
Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword, because you always hear moms that want to increase their milk supply. I want, freezer fulls of milk, which is a whole nother story. It's not necessary for you to have a freezer full of milk, but we're obsessed with it for some reason. We all want this freezer that you open the doors and there's, angels singing and it's golden, all this milk, which is not necessary. But there are moms that have an oversupply, which is not fun either. They're attached to the pump all the time because if they don't pump, they get engorged, which makes them more prone to getting mastitis and clogged ducts. They might get frequent clogged ducts, and it's just not fun. It can cause lots of issues. So in those cases, there are parents that need to decrease their milk supply as well. So there's, both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard that too. Like I've had friends who just had overproduced so much milk. Could that be problematic for your kid though? Are they going to like latch on and just be like drowning in your milk?
Well, in most cases, babies can control the flow of your milk with their tongue. Like if their tongue is functioning properly, of course. So like imagine like you're drinking water through a straw. If you were to kind of put a little bit of pressure on the straw, you can control the flow of the water coming through with your mouth. Same thing with babies in most cases. But sometimes there are some letdowns that are really forceful where your baby's like, okay, I can't take this. And they might start choking or they might pull off. So there are some instances where baby does have some overactive letdown where they just can't compensate. But usually what I recommend if that does occur is a couple of things. One, you can pump for a few seconds or minutes before latching or hand express. And then once your letdown starts, you can collect that in a bottle and store it for later and then latch baby on after your letdown. Alternatively, you can latch baby on, and then once you feel your letdown or you see that baby's kind of having some trouble with the letdown, you can unlatch them, collect your letdown, and then latch them on again. Or one of my favorite ways is doing laid back breastfeeding, because then your milk has to fight gravity because it has to go upward. So instead of cradling your baby breastfeeding like we normally do, you would kind of recline back in about a 45-degree angle and latch baby on, like just laying on top of your body. That way your milk has to fight its way upward and your letdown isn't so forceful.
Very interesting. I haven't heard of the laid back method yet.
But you're also kind of laying down, and if you have a supportive partner at home, you can ask him to bring you some lemonade or something while you're laying. Yeah.
So I would love to, so the first week of August is World Breastfeeding Week, and I'm going to be sharing some statistics about that, but also the last week of August is World Black Breastfeeding Week, and I would love to touch on why it's so important.
Yes, it is very important. And the reason is that Black mothers and babies have the lowest percentage of breastfeeding across all races. Like we're the race that has the lowest percentage of breastfeeding and the lowest duration of breastfeeding. Of course, those numbers are changing. Black women do breastfeed, and it's really important for us to see other people that look like us breastfeeding and setting that example, because there are lots of cultural reasons, generational traumas that have shed a negative light on breastfeeding in the Black community. It kind of goes back to the slavery days where we were forced to neglect our own children that needed breast milk and feed someone else's child. And so that just kind of creates this negative stigma because of the trauma associated with that. And I know that was several years ago, but these things are passed down from generation to generation to generation. When you pair that with a lack of support, studies have shown, there are actual studies about this, that physicians and healthcare providers kind of downplay the issues or pain or traumas associated with Black women, then we also have a lack of support, where if I were to go to my doctor, which actually happened to me, and say I'm having trouble breastfeeding, instead of referring me to a lactation consultant, I said, well, hey, here's some formula samples. And that's not really what I wanted, because people assume that Black women don't breastfeed, so it's okay, give some formula. So the lack of support is there. And also, just the lack of resources. There aren't very many targeted campaigns or targeted resources to women of color to help promote breastfeeding. Of course, that's changing. There are lots of wonderful organizations now. There's a whole organization associated to Black Breastfeeding Week. So it's really, really, I'm excited to see that, and I'm hoping that those numbers change. But I think that as a society, every mother should have the access to the same resources. Every mother should have access and support in her parenting journey. And that's really what Black Breastfeeding Week is about, is to raise awareness of the disparities that are associated with being a Black breastfeeding mother, and to hopefully change that. So hopefully it changes. I know that there are a lot of, there's a lot of confusion associated with it. Every year we post about it. And every year we get some, unfortunately, ignorant comments, but also some really confused comments where people just don't understand. So I'm hoping that, people can have an open mind and really look at their fellow breastfeeding mother and see why this is such a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't realize the root of it, right? A lot of people aren't aware that it's something that goes way back. And so obviously generationally that is passed down, the stigmas around it, and even just how you parent or mother your own children. Like, my mom didn't do it, I'm not going to do it, and you kind of continue that forward.
Yeah, exactly. And even in my family, I breastfed my children for a very long time. And members of my family, when my infants were just 3 months old, they were like, "You're still breastfeeding?" I'm like, "He's 3 months," because it's just not culturally normal yet in our society. It's getting there, and I'm excited about it. But there's still a lot of families that don't really see the value in it. And again, when you pair that with lack of resources and just a lack of support all around from healthcare providers as well, then it really makes it more difficult. I always get comments like, well, at breastfeeding, you can choose to do that. The resources are available. And that is true, but you can't say that unless you've experienced it. I've experienced someone downplaying my concerns and saying, "Here, do this instead," or "It's okay, do this instead." I've experienced that, and we can't negate people's experiences just because that's not your experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would love to just ask you too. So I work as a birth doula, so I'm very aware of a lot of the statistics out there when it comes to birthing and motherhood and everything like that. So I would love to ask you then too, how can we as a birthing community be more supportive in spreading this conversation? And then just us as women in general, how can we be more supportive in spreading awareness and to helping women make the best choices for their families and just be in support of that?
I think when it comes to women of color, it really just comes to listening and valuing their experiences. And I think that's one of the biggest that we have, that because people don't experience the same things that we do, then they think that these things don't exist. And it really doesn't matter, your socioeconomic status, anything. It just really matters just this negative stigma associated with Black women in healthcare. Specifically, I remember a personal story is after I stopped breastfeeding my daughter, my period didn't come back. And it's very not normal for me. I was like, okay, my period's not coming. What's going on? And I went after several months of it not coming, me just waiting and to the doctor. And she basically told me to my face, "Oh, a woman like you was probably pregnant." I don't know what that meant. I'm a professional. I'm a business owner. I'm a registered nurse. So it was offensive to me. She prescribed me antibiotics. I didn't have an infection. And she basically downplayed my experience. I asked her for thyroid levels. My mother has a thyroid issue. I asked her to draw, hormonal levels, and she refused. And so I found a Black OBGYN who ordered an ultrasound and found a Lyme-sized tumor on my ovary. And thankfully, it wasn't cancerous. I got it removed. But how scary would it have been if it was cancerous? And that she completely dismissed my claim because of that stigma that's associated with Black women when they go to a health provider. So I think that needs to change. And I think as women in the birth world, birth workers, and men as well, if you're there are men doulas as well. I think that as birth workers, we can be advocates, and knowing these statistics and knowing that this actually occurs is the first step. Just being aware and recognizing that this is an issue will help you advocate for your birthing clients more effectively. And it will also make women that are experiencing this feel more supported, because it just starts with just being heard and being valued.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And that's like one thing that I always say to all clients, I mean, just in general, when it comes to birth, is it's so important to be heard and validated in how you're feeling. And if you have a provider that doesn't answer your questions or rolls their eyes at you or doesn't make you feel heard throughout your birthing experience, this is your experience, then switch providers. Get somebody new, and you do not have to put up with that at all. But people, it's like we're afraid of medical figures, almost like, oh, well, they must know what they're talking about. They must whatever. And it's like, no, you got to fight for yourself. You got to advocate. And that's one of the things I love about being a doula too, is just that educational process of informing people, no, you do have a decision here.
Yeah, that's so important. You know, we think of doctors as the all-knowing beings, like whatever they say. If I don't do what they say, I'm going to go to jail or something, you know?
Yeah.
But people too, and they're still learning. So it's completely okay for you to do your own research and get second opinions and advocate for yourself and not blindly kind of follow whatever instructions there are. It's so important, because if I would have done that, you know, who knows what would have happened? You know, if I didn't say something's not right, I want a second opinion, I would have never found out that I had this massive tumor growing. So it's so important to follow your gut and to just go with what you feel is right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I would love for you to tell everybody where they can find you, where they can try these delicious cookies at, and where's the best place to follow you.
Yeah. So you can find us at www.milky-mama.com, or if you're in Canada, you can find us at milkymamacanada.com. And you can find our products there, our product line. You can also get access to our lactation consultations if you're in need. Also our breastfeeding course that we just launched, Breastfeeding 101, is there. Tons of resources. If you follow us on Instagram at Milky Mama LLC, you can get access to all of our informational content. And I also do a weekly Q&A live session on Instagram and Facebook Live, where I answer all of your breastfeeding and parenting questions live too. So if you have a burning question and you just want something answered really quick, you can jump on. And then, of course, you can always call us, 877-88-MILKY, or shoot us an email. Our lactation consultants are happy to help.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't know that you did the parenting thing. So I feel prepared for birth, but everything that comes after, I'm like, I'm going to need some help in there. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think that as women, we just are kind of carried through the labor process, but then after that, we're on our own. Like, here's your baby. Go off, be a parent now, you know, and I'm hoping that changes. Hopefully, you know, we can provide more support, and that other companies and resources can provide more postpartum support, because it's so needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and answer all of my questions and to educate us. And we look forward to following everything that Milky Mamas does, because, I mean, you're already such an enterprise, and I know that it's just going to continue to grow and to help women. So I'm excited to see that.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so grateful for her taking the time to come on and do this. And for the record, I was recording at my aunt's house in the middle of nowhere we thought we had great Wi-Fi, but then my iPad kept acting up, and she was just so patient with me trying to get all the technical stuff worked out. So I'm so grateful for Krystal for coming on. Next week, we have Lindsay Arnold-Cusick coming on from Dancing with the Stars. She is pregnant with her first kid, and she's going to be telling us how her pregnancy's been going and just answering some questions. So we're excited to chat with her. If you are listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Also, since it is World Breastfeeding Week, I'm going to be posting a lot of breastfeeding statistics, tips, information, things like that on the Miraculous Mamas Instagram page. So make sure that you look out for that. I love you guys, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.